The technology sector globally and in India is going through major change, huge disruptions. How are Indian companies gearing up for these changes, and what should young techies do to ensure that they don't get left behind on the technological curve? Joining us at the World Economic Forum in Davos for a special edition of Jab We Met, Rishad Premji of Wipro. Thank you very much, Rishad, for agreeing to speak to us.
Thank you.
I want to ask you at the outset, what impact do you believe artificial intelligence is having on the tech sector, on Indian companies in this space? How are you gearing up for it? And what, for all our viewers who are watching, what threat or what challenge or what opportunity does it present?
Look, it's still in many ways early days in the overall evolution of artificial intelligence, but I'm very hopeful in terms of how it can help augment our workforce. You know, the reality is many full jobs will not disappear. Some activities in those jobs may change. And if AI can help someone be a better driver, be a better doctor, be a better customer experience agent, then why not? So I'm very hopeful from an AI perspective in terms of what it can do for the industry.
But the big story really is around whether this will lead to job loss. I think that's really what's freaking everyone out. Do you see artificial intelligence as being an enabler, a job creator, or a disruptor that leads to hundreds of techies getting benched?
No, look, I think the nature of jobs will change and the ways of working will change, and it's our duty as an industry, it's our duty as companies to help people make that change, to reskill, to be able to participate in areas of relevance tomorrow, right? So I'm also chairman of NASSCOM this year, and we're the industry association that represents the $170 billion industry. And a big focus for us is our Future Skills platform, which is a major initiative that we're driving. And the objective of that platform is how do you retrain 2 million of the 4 million people the IT industry directly employs in phase one, which is over the next few years. So that's a major focus. How do you help people come along the ride, reskill and upskill to participate in the opportunities of tomorrow?
What percentage of your workforce at Wipro are you retraining every year? How substantial is that retraining? Because once you've been working for 15, 20 years, you're kind of set in your ways, used to a certain style of functioning. As technology changes, languages changing, programming changes, how easily or how difficult is it for middle-aged techies to be able to cope?
No, I think people are. You know, you'll always have 20% of your workforce that is driving the bus, right? They're the cloud-first, digitally native people. You'll have 70% of your folks that are very sincere, recognize the need and want to be on that bus. And it's your duty to help people get on that bus. And then there'll be some people, like in all situations in life, which will say, look, this too shall pass. And unfortunately, that will not make the cut. Right? So that's just the reality of life. The other thing that's changed is the nature in which you are training people, right? So historically, training was a very push-based model. Training is becoming more and more of a pull-based model because people recognize that they need to upskill and be relevant. And then it's the job of the industry and companies to provide that platform to be retrained.
You know, you're big on strategy. The World Economic Forum in Davos is a lot about looking out into the future. How do you view the future of the Indian workforce? And for those who are in college at this time, looking to pass out in a couple of years, what kind of extra skills should they be equipping themselves with to succeed at companies?
No, I think, you know, you're going to have to balance extreme specialization with also other skills. So, for example, one of the things we are talking about at NASSCOM now is moving from STEM-based skills to STEAM-based skills, the A being the arts, right? The ability to problem solve, the ability to critically think, leadership and participation with empathy, understanding the needs of individuals. And I think that's going to become more and more important also in from a skilling perspective. I know when we look for people who have some of those components outside of the core technology. So I think thinking about that also, which historically has not been a strong Indian trait.
So you're not looking for just nerds?
No, you're looking for people who have balance and a different perspective outside of technology as well, right? You're going to have to communicate more and more to stakeholders. You're selling more and more to business communities who understand the value that comes out of technology and being able to communicate that to them than just purely the technology itself. Technology at the end of the day is an enabler to solve a business problem. You know, when we talk in these forums even about AI, when we talk to our customers, we're not talking to them about the technology. We're talking to them about the problem that technology can solve.
So if the future will be one at the very high end of technology, where do Indian companies stand in that? You've got Google's, you've got Facebook making so much investment in research and development, looking out into the future. Is there a fear that Indian companies could lag behind?
Look, I'm very hopeful for the technology industry in India, right? I mean, the model began with cost and customer state for quality. But all of us as an industry have invested disruptively in the last 4 or 5 years in terms of new age capabilities. A third of our revenues for most of our companies come from the digital space. So I'm hugely optimistic about the tenacity of the Indian IT industry and its ability to participate in the future. The reality also is, by the way, a lot of these big companies you mentioned have huge presence of talent in India. So really India is a space and a place where you are able to find good talent.
How do you view the developments in the United States, the tightening of visa norms, Donald Trump talking about, making it tougher for Indian techies to come and work abroad, and how are you trying to deal with that?
No, I think it's an important issue, right? And I think the mobility of people is an important element that we've got to address as a part of any trade issue. The challenge is there's a shortage of skills everywhere, including in the US. And so what are we doing? A lot of organizations are building that talent ground up. Look, from a visa standpoint, nothing has changed legislatively yet. But I think administratively, there is an overhang.
There's anxiety.
Certainly.
And there's uncertainty.
And so absolutely. So we as a company, we as an industry body are taking this very seriously and very proactively trying to change the agenda, change the perception that exists about Indian IT companies. A simple one, for example, that most Indian IT companies consume the H-1B visas. The reality is that less than 15% of the visas are consumed by Indian companies. It's a different thing that 70% of those visas go to Indians, which is not necessarily going to Indian companies. And you've got to break those perceptions and myths that perhaps exist.
Finally, there's a huge debate raging on data localization. What do you make of this debate? Should data of Indian customers be stored on Indian shores like Mukesh Ambani says, or is the data safer globally?
Look, I think you've got to find the right balance between data protection and data localization. And data localization doesn't necessarily translate to data protection. I think we've got to find the right balance whereby we are able to find and provide protection and comfort to people's data, at the same time not stifle innovation. When you have young companies that are using global cloud providers to build their business, we've got to make sure we don't stifle innovation at the expense of providing protection. And again, localization doesn't necessarily translate to protection.
Finally, how's WEF been for you this year?
It's always nice to be here. We are standing in freezing -10-degree weather. So it's nice to be here. You learn a lot. I'm always happy to leave and go back to, my warm, comfortable country.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad that we could, end your reticence and get you on television. We hope to have you back more often.
Thanks for having me.
Rishad Premji, thank you very much.